Welcome, everyone. We have with us today David Kummer, the author of Misery House. Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't show up very well on my screen. So it's the House on the Hill series. This is book one. So, hello, David.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here once
Good.
again.
Yeah. So, your book is on pre order right now and it's live tomorrow, correct?
Yep, it'll come out tomorrow. I don't know if that's midnight tonight. It kind of depends, where you live, but it'll be
Yeah.
out in the next 24 hours at some point.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, it's great that we're talking about it today.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. So the Misery House is uh, obviously it's about the house on the hill. What was what made you want to write this story?
So for me, I think the setting and the story is the main thing that kind of drew me into it. Usually when I write a book, I kind of have like a idea at the beginning, and that obviously expands into a full book. For this, that idea at the beginning was really the setting. I wanted to do, a haunted house book. I feel like everyone that writes horror or thrillers has done a haunted house book, and I had not. So I wanted to do that, but kind of put a twist on it. So it's not really as focused on the house as it is on the family that's dealing with it, and on this little town that's like physically underneath this house because it's on a hill. The series title, but also like kind of spiritually under this house, like they're being haunted by this house in a way. So it's not just a haunted house where you go inside and it's creepy. It's like it has this sort of like outreach to the town, doing negative things. There's a tragedy that happens at the beginning of the book and about
Yes.
halfway through, and those kind of start everything that's going on, building up to this the end of this book one. And it is going to be a trilogy of books. So currently writing book two. I'll write book three throughout the next year. So I've already got the whole thing planned out, which is why it's so fun to sort of promote this book because I know what's going to happen in the next two books.
Yeah, and you definitely keep us hanging because it is, as you said, there is a tragedy at the very beginning. So it starts right away with action and leaves you wondering, like, what happened? There's a fire in town. So I'm not giving anything away, but there's really no resolution yet about the fire in this book. And one of the in the very beginning, you do say one of the characters thinks, sometimes I couldn't remember if the house was haunted or if it haunted us. So that really sets the tone immediately that it's very ominous and it is the house does like rule over the town.
Hmm.
Um, and I kind of get the impression, now I could be wrong, and I hope I'm not getting giving anything away. There's something not right about the sheriff. Like he's
Yeah,
very prejudiced for one thing.
definitely.
Um, and it's just hard to tell at this point because it's super early. Is he protecting the town from something or was he involved in something? You
Right.
kind of allude to that with his actions.
Yeah, and that's something in book two. Like I said, I'm currently finishing up writing the first draft of it, but I have everything planned out. So that's something that I deal with in book two a lot, is these people that are sort of ambiguous in the first. What are their motives? And also it really wraps up like the main mystery of this book. I know some people had called the ending a cliffhanger, which you could call it a cliffhanger. But I think it's more about just these lingering questions because it does wrap up some of the questions in book one. Like I don't leave you
Yeah.
totally hanging, but there is definitely
No.
there's definitely a couple major questions that are going to be wrapped up in book two, and all that kind of leads to this big finale in book three. And a lot of
Yeah.
that has to do with the sheriff, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously you're doing 3 books, so you can't give it all away in the beginning.
Hmm.
There is a major incident that happens near the end, so that's really interesting, and it does wrap some stuff up, yes. So it's
Yeah,
not a cliffhanger, but, I mean, it's obvious, it's a series, you have to wait and see what's gonna happen, what the house is
right.
about, what the characters are really about. Because you do have, like, one of the main characters, Naomi, she has been inside the house and has had something happen to her, but we don't know about that yet. She just kind of alludes to it, and she tries to keep her children away from it.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a couple incidences as well where Benjamin and Jeremy, sorry, the other main characters, they talk about like going in the house a little bit when they were younger, but they didn't really go very far, and something kind of scared them away. So I assume all of that is going to kind of come out as the books play along as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like you mentioned with the two parents and with the two kids. So there's Benjamin and Naomi are the parents in this family, and then they
Hmm.
have two kids, Kaya and Nate. And for the parents, it's this thing where you sort of grow up with this. It's almost like a Halloween story. Kids will tell each other like, "I dare you to go sneak into the house," that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then as they get older, that threat that was like a joke, a Halloween story, starts to get more real, and now it's like they're in physical danger. And then for their kids, it's something sort of along the same lines, but obviously they don't have as much life experience. They don't really know what's going on with the house, and so they're almost not as afraid of it because they have like this sort of the naive of being a kid. And that's something that was really fun to do with. It's all from their point of view. Each chapter is from the point of view of one of the four family characters. So just sort of looking at how are they different? How is their point of view different? The way that they talk about the house, the way they talk about the town. That's something that I really enjoyed doing with this book. Just sort of little differences within the chapters, and trying to have that difference in the voice so that they don't all sound the same.
Yeah, you can definitely see the difference between the parents, well, the father and the friend,
And that
the
was
people
that
who
was really
grew up.
another one of my main points when I wrote the book, is just having this really close up look at this family, dealing with, obviously some of them have past trauma.
Oh, we've just lost your image here. We're just going to pause for 1 second and see if we can get David back. Okay, while we were waiting to see if David can come back, um, again, I will tell you that the Misery House, I'll put up links so you can order it, and it will be available. It's available to buy now. It will be live tomorrow. Hi, you're back. I lost you there.
I'm back. Was that me that cut out?
Yeah, we lost you. So I just kept talking about the book a little bit. Um, okay, so sorry. So you were saying about the different voices with the
Yeah, the
characters.
family members, basically just how they all have a different perspective of everything. um, and so that really influences how they talk about things and their motivations, of course, in the book.
Hmm. Yes, and then you do introduce an entirely new family into the town, where the town is very close knit and they're against change. Um, I'm just I'm left wondering myself as a reader, does that have anything to do with the house, or is it more the older generations protecting new people, and not wanting them to be a part of, their community? Sorry, David's having some technical issues. So I'll read you the blurb while we're waiting. The abandoned house, a town with a dark history. You've never known a haunted house like this. New Haven hasn't seen tragedy like this for centuries. In the rural farming community, a local store burns to the ground with two bodies inside. A newlywed couple with their own secrets goes missing. This quickly becomes the deadliest summer anyone can remember, and the unexplained deaths aren't finished yet. With no answers in sight, the townspeople are on edge. What evil force is attacking their peaceful community, and what did they do to provoke it?
All right, I think I fixed it.
Right.
I was
Okay.
having Wi-Fi difficulties.
Oh, yeah, not a problem. I was just reading your blurb for people so that we're still communicating, so
Nice,
that's okay.
nice. It
Yes,
wouldn't be a video if there wasn't difficulties.
I know, and doing it live makes it more interesting that way.
Exactly, you never know.
Yes, so with the introduction of the new family, um, was is the generational people protecting them from the house, or is it just their way of life and they don't want new people a part of the town?
Right, so that's kind of the question, especially with the sheriff, is at the beginning of the book, this new family moves in, and it seems like they're doing okay. One of their kids is on the baseball team with Nate Woods
Mhm.
from the main family. Naomi knows the mom from church, and so they're sort of like being integrated into the town. And then when tragedy strikes, the sheriff like totally zeroes in on them and starts to kind of go after them a little bit. And I won't give away how that wraps up. It doesn't really wrap up fully. That's another thing to explore in book two. But it's definitely a case of some characters maybe trying to protect them from the house. But the sheriff, that definitely shows his prejudice in another way. Because
Yeah.
I think Naomi mentions how when she moved to town, because she didn't grow up there, she
Mhm.
married Cliff and or she married Benjamin and moved there. She mentions how the sheriff was sort of prejudiced towards her as well when she first showed up. And so it's another example where the sheriff is sort of like totally against outsiders. He wants a very specific kind of people in the town. And he sort of has this feeling like he can choose who stays and goes in the town because he has all this power, real or made up.
Right.
He has a lot of social power outside of just being the sheriff.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was kind of picking up on, and again, it could just be me. Does he also have a generational power, like his father or grandfather had some influence on the town?
Yeah, so there's really in New Haven, their town, there's really been like two big families throughout, the last century or two centuries. And one of those families is the sheriff's, and then one of those families is the family that lived in the house on the hill. Which
Okay.
in the prequel novella that came out last year, that's been out for about a year now. It's not directly related to the trilogy, but you get a look at the house on the hill when it was actually alive and sort of vibrant. Basically, the end of that family dynamic that lived in that house. So that's if you want to actually get inside the house, you can read that short story novella. Especially if you read The Misery House and you're anxious for book two, you can kind of go back in time and see what the house was like when there were still people there.
Yeah, what was the title of that one?
That one is called I See the World Through Darkness. And if you
Right.
go to The Misery House on Amazon or Goodreads, it should be linked there under the series page.
Okay,
Or
perfect.
you can
Okay.
look on my website, davidcoomer.com. It's all on there.
Yeah.
So it's not too hard to find.
Yeah. Okay, good. And when is book two scheduled to come out?
So my goal right now is for next summer. It might get pushed back a little bit. It kind of depends. I'm doing my second year of teaching this year, so it sort of depends how that
Hmm.
goes and how much I'm able to edit. But I have pretty much the whole thing written, so it's just that editing process, which usually is easier than the writing process, but maybe not for this book. I've got a lot that I need to sort of change and tinker with, but I'm excited about it. I totally revamped the ending to kind of close a lot of things off and set up book a sort of fresh start for book three. And I think that'll make it better in the long run. There's going to be more payoff in the end, especially.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Um, so was there anything else that you had wanted to tell people? I had just bookmarked some passages, but was
Right.
there anything you wanted people to know?
Well, this is really my first real series that I've written. I tried a series, 5 or 6 years ago. It may have even been longer than that, but this is the first time I've really sat down and had a whole series planned out to go through writing it. So that's been really fun to have these like multi-character plots that are really intricate and woven out across a whole trilogy. It's also just fun to spend that much time with one character and with one family. The whole the whole setup of this family is sort of personal for me. The house where they live is based on my grandma's house, basically like the way it's set up physically, and sort of out in the country. So that's
Mhm.
like a, there's little personal details like that for me in most of my books, but especially in this book. Because I sort of, I when I think of my grandma's house, I think of, family gatherings and everyone's happy and that kind of thing. So for the Woods family, their house up to this point is sort of like a safe place for them, as opposed to the house on the hill, which is the exact opposite.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Right.
Um, yeah, I just I can't I don't wanna give anything away, because you have an incident where something physically happens with the young married couple.
Hmm.
Um, was that influenced by the house? I'm just trying to
So
think how to word it so I'm not giving anything away.
right. So yeah. So you're talking about this married couple. The girl is friends with Kaya. They've been
Mhm,
friends ever since like middle school. And the guy Kaya also knows he's you grow up in a very small town, so they're all sort of townies. Um, it's the married couple incident is definitely influenced by the house, and that was sort of my big question at the end of this book is what do I do with the guy from the couple, how do I wrap up the storyline with the girl, um, how's all that going to go down. And
mhm.
so I think that's when people called it a cliffhanger, it was mainly because you only got answers to one of those questions. You see what happens with the guy, you don't really see what happens with the girl quite yet, but that's sort of
Yeah,
like the long payoff for the end of book two. That's really stretched out, and that's because that's obviously Kaya's main motivation at this point is she's trying to get her best friend back. She
yeah,
wants to save her from anything that's going on, definitely in relation to the house. Um, and then the guy is definitely a shady character. I think I think he's not quite as evil as he may seem right now. I think he definitely got caught up in some stuff that he should not have been caught up in, and he sort of has to decide now because he's that everyone that as of that we know of is still alive or still can make an impact in future books. So
yeah,
he kind of has to decide is he going to redeem himself or is he going to sort of carry on this path? So
yeah.
everyone still has a lot of questions to answer for themselves.
Yeah, that was the, like you said, the cliffhanger in a way, because he leaves it set up as he's blaming the new kid in town,
Hmm.
and you're left questioning, well, is he really just blaming the new kid because it's someone to blame? Was it all his own actions? Um, is he really just a jerk? You know?
Right, and
Yeah,
and I
so
won't, yeah, I won't give anything away, but he does sort of confess at the end to something that he could not have done. Like he
yeah,
has an alibi. He was getting married that day. The
yeah,
the the guy in the married couple. So
yeah, and
that's
Kaya
another.
does talk about that. She does
Right.
mention that.
So that's another question is you're like, why is he confessing to this thing that he couldn't have done?
Yeah,
Um, and that's again, all of this is sort of he's caught up in the house on the hill. There's definitely some stuff going on there, and I won't really hint at that because there's book one doesn't even really explain that fully.
no,
But we're gonna get into it in book two. There's a lot of creepy settings inside the house even that I've got. And again, if you've read the prequel, you sort of have a leg up. You sort of can maybe guess what's coming in a way,
right.
but it's gonna get. I don't know if it's gonna get dark, but it's definitely gonna get intense.
And I had read the prequel, but that was like, what, 2 years ago now?
Right? Yeah.
Has it been that long? Yeah. So I should have
Mhm.
really read it again before I read this, but that's
Yeah, and
okay.
it's
I
all
can
it's
read
all
it
it's
again.
all sort of loose connections. It's
Yeah.
something that like when it pops up in book one or book two, you're like, oh wow, I remember that.
Yeah.
Not as much like I can guess what's going to happen. So I
No.
tried to do that on purpose. I wanted it to be like a little teaser, and something will show up in book two that you're definitely going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was like the main thing in the prequel.
I think that's really a good way to do it because now you have people reading book 1, okay, they're ready for book 2. They want book 2, so they have that anticipation, which is
Hmm.
really the perfect way to build a series because you do want them to pick up the next book and not be like, "Well, okay, I know what happened," right?
Right?
So,
Yeah.
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 I just wanna read this one line because, Allison was in the house, and she says, "It was like being trapped under the earth, imprisoned in a grave." So that's just a really strong image, which is excellent. And you have a lot of alliteration like that throughout the book. So I think that's really, really well done. And yeah, so I think it's really interesting, and everyone should pick up a copy of The Misery House, Book One, for the House on the Hill series. What is Book Two titled? Do you have its title yet?
Not 100% sure. I think it's going to be The Silent Forest. Because if believe it or not, book two, nobody actually goes inside the house per se. There's a lot
Okay.
of there's a lot of other things going on around the house that they're sort of investigating and dealing with. I introduce this nice old married couple, which is really just a tragic beginning to the book two. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff where I'm trying to obviously keep the focus on the family, but I'm trying to expand New Haven a little bit, show some side characters in New Haven, because now that you know who the family is, you can sort
Mhm.
of, you've got those characters. So I'm introducing other characters like people in town. Jeremy has a little side motivation that we're dealing with. There's these other people who are obviously affected by the house on the hill. And of course, at the beginning of the book one, there's this big tragedy
Yeah.
with the George's shop that catches on fire. So I have to kind of deal with the aftermath of that as well. This whole town grieving this tragedy, and so that's something else that I'm sort of dealing with in book two.
Mhm.
It's also
Um,
it's just
mhm.
written differently. So I finished the Misery House about a year ago now, so it's been a long wait to write book two. And so in that time, I have changed a lot as a writer. I've graduated college, so for my senior thesis, I did a lot of stuff with minimalism. And so book one has these passages that can get a little wordy. It's definitely got some like literary fiction vibes to it. There's a lot of talk about emotions and stuff, and that's true in book two as well. But I've really gone and tried to keep things snappy, keep things a little more concise. Which it's obviously, I think it's going to be clear that it's written by the same person, but it is going to have a little different tone to it. And so the way that I kind of do that in the story is because there's a small time jump after book one, like two
Right.
weeks, not like a year. But so in that 2 weeks, things are kind of calm. People are really trying to grapple with everything that just happened, all this crazy stuff that book one ended with. And
Mhm.
so that sort of leads to a more concise, but again, things are building up to this big climax at the end of book two.
I think that's great because, I mean, every writer, we grow with every book that we write, and especially with you, as you said, graduating college, congratulations, and becoming a
Thank you.
teacher now.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
right.
So yeah, so watching the changes through your writing is a really nice experience as well, because you do have a strong foundation, so it can only get better from here, right?
Right. And I feel like if you think of like in general series, like Harry Potter or whatever like your go-to series is, there's
Hmm.
definitely a lot of change in like from book one to book seven or book one to even book three.
Oh
So
yeah,
it'll
absolutely.
definitely be the same with mine. But book two and book three might be a little darker. They might be written slightly differently. But it's all the same story.
Yeah, and it'll all have your voice underneath it no matter what.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's great. Yeah. Okay, well, this is awesome. Thank you so much for chatting today. And as I said, Misery House is pre-order right now. It's actually dropping tomorrow. So go
Yep.
ahead and grab those. Do you want to just I did put it on the website, on the blog and everything, but do you want to tell everyone about what you have upcoming for your interviews and that? Do you have that
Yeah.
information handy?
Yes, I do. So today, if you're watching this live, if you're not, that's awesome also. So tomorrow the book comes out. That's July 7th. I'll be on a local radio station here, WRX 96.7 at 9 a.m. You can listen to that online, and I'll also put that recording on my blog afterward. Um, on July 8th, the day after the book comes out, I have a launch party in downtown Madison. And then over the next week, I've got a couple more events in Madison and in New Albany because I live in New Albany now. So multi-city author. I can have events in both cities, which is kind of
Great.
cool. I've never done that before.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, yeah, and then on July 15th, I'm really excited about this. There's a local bookstore by us that's like a coffee shop and a bookstore called Mickey's. And so, me and another author, another teacher friend of mine who also writes, we're going to be having a double author event talking about my book, The Misery House, and his book, sci-fi Western thriller that came out last year. So that one's going to be really exciting. I may try to get some video from that event and put it up on the website. So if you are only following online, I'll try to have some more stuff on there for you. My dad will probably record one of the library events. So there will definitely be some things on the website. You can keep an eye out for that. And then that'll wrap up on July 20th is my last event at the Floyd County Library down in New Albany. And after that, I don't know. I'll have some events sprinkled out throughout the school year, I think. So there will
No, that's
be
fantastic.
other opportunities. Yeah, definitely. We'll have a lot of stuff going on. It's my hope.
Yeah, no, it's really good to see that you're pushing hard to like get out there and get your face out there and your name out there and your books out there, of course.
Yeah.
So that's really great. Yeah. So hopefully everyone will follow David, and I'll have some links up in the YouTube. I'll put the information underneath in the comments. So please go ahead and click through, follow him on all the social medias and all of that. Um, yeah, this was fantastic. So thank you very much
Yes.
for
Thank
chatting
you
with
for
me
having me
today.
again.
You're welcome. And we'll have to set up another one for book 2 when it comes out.
Absolutely. We'll do it. Hopefully
Okay.
in less than a year.
Yeah, that'd be good because people are going to be waiting. They're going
I
to
know.
be
I know.
hounding you. Come on, get
Me,
writing.
I'm working on it, guys. I promise.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye.
Okay, bye.